The sound of the lock being cut wasn't just metal meeting metal, it was the sound of my sanctuary, my daughter's safe place, my grandmother's legacy being torn open by arrogance. Victoria Harlow didn't knock. She barged in heels, slicing across the cobblestone path, her clipboard raised like a declaration of war. Roses, my grandmother planted petals. Emma once used to make fairy tea crushed under her boots. "This is community property," she barked as if volume equaled truth. My daughter clutched my leg, eyes wide. "Mom, why is that lady yelling at our flowers?" I didn't answer. I simply hit record. She raged. She threatened. But I stood silent, watching a stranger vandalize a history I built from love, not rules. This wasn't about offense, it was about erasure, control, colonization masked as governance. My name is Rachel Thompson. I'm 25, and I was about to show Victoria what happens when you pick a legal fight on someone else's property. I wasn't always the woman who pressed record. 2 years ago, I was a real estate attorney in downtown San Diego, young, ambitious, and obsessed with zoning codes. But after Lily was born, I stepped away from courtrooms and contracts to raise her in the house my grandmother left me. A small 2-bedroom wrapped in ivy and quiet. The kind of house that smelled like lavender and old books. My grandmother's roses still bloomed every spring, tall, untamed, glorious. I built a fence around them, not to keep people out, but to keep something in peace. That fence was more than wood and nails. It was a line between the chaos outside and the world I was building for my daughter. I wasn't trying to start a war, but Victoria Harlow, she made damn sure I would have to finish one. The first time Victoria Harlow came to my door, she brought cookies. Sugar, store-bought, wrapped in a ribbon that matched her blazer, black, crisp, wrinkle-free. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, though I'd lived here 4 years longer than she had. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her clipboard was tucked behind her back like a concealed weapon. "That's an interesting fence," she said, glancing past me toward the rose garden. "Thank you," I replied. "You know the HOA has guidelines about exterior modifications, but I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." I told her I wasn't part of the HOA, that my property predated its formation. Her smile froze, then twitched. "Oh," she said. "Well, we'll see about that." She left the cookies. I never touched them. I wasn't sure why, but something about her made the air feel colder. 2 days later, she was back. No cookies this time. Just the clipboard front and center like a badge of authority. "I've reviewed the guidelines," Victoria said, tapping the board like it owed her money. "That fence exceeds the approved height by 0.8 meters. Neutral colors only. Earth tones not. Whatever this is, it was cedar. Sanded, sealed, and city approved." I repeated, "My house isn't governed by the HOA. I filed exemption paperwork in 2016. She didn't flinch. "Every house in this area is part of the community. You can't just opt out of order." Her voice was calm, but her tone sharp, rehearsed. The way you speak when you're used to winning arguments by sheer persistence. I offered to email her the documentation. She declined. "I'll handle this through the proper channels," she said, already halfway down my path. Her heels clicked like a countdown. The first letter arrived on Monday, folded neatly. HOA letterhead. My name typed in bold. "Notice of violation unauthorized fence construction. Please respond within 72 hours. I stared at it for a long time, like it might dissolve if I just blinked enough. Then came Wednesday's letter. This time, noise complaint. I'd watered my plants at 10:00 a.m. Apparently, the sound of running water disturbed the acoustic integrity of the neighborhood. Friday's notice accused me of improper trash disposal, though I'd aligned my bins with NASA-level precision. 3 letters, 3 days. All signed with the same looping V, Harlow. I wasn't scared, I was insulted. But I didn't react, not yet, because if Victoria wanted to fight using paper, well, I happened to know how to weaponize documentation better than anyone she'd ever met. It wasn't the letters that stung. It was the silence. The neighbor who used to wave during morning walks suddenly interested in her phone screen. The retired couple across the street who once gifted Lily a tricycle, their curtains stayed drawn now. At the local market, the cashier who always chatted about her grandkids scanned my groceries in silence, eyes fixed on the register like it held moral authority. I had become a story. A whisper passed from porch to porch. She thinks she's above the rules. Bad example for the children. One person ruins everything. I wasn't just Emma with the rose garden anymore. I was Emma, the troublemaker, the dissenter, the one who built a fence. I didn't know what was worse, being wrongfully accused or realizing how quickly people are willing to believe it. I started seeing her at odd hours, at odd places. Victoria stood across the street in her black blazer, pretending to walk her dog, which had no leash, no name tag, and no visible need to be there. Once I caught her photographing my fence from behind a neighbor's hedge. Another time I found her standing just outside my driveway, staring, clipboard clutched like a Bible. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Until Lily tugged my sleeve one afternoon and whispered, "Mommy, why is that angry lady watching us again?" That night, I reviewed our doorbell camera. She had passed by 7 times in one day. I didn't say a word. I simply renamed the camera folder on my phone Victoria Harlow. Evidence. Week 1. Because when someone tries to build a case against you, sometimes the smartest move is to build one first. On Thursday, I got a knock. A man in an oversized suit stood there holding a crumpled folder and a plastic briefcase. Bradley Thompson, legal representative of the HOA, he announced, adjusting glasses that didn't fit his face. "You're in violation of Community Code subsection. Can I see your bar license?" I interrupted. He blinked, sweated, fumbled. "I left it in my car." "You mean in your other briefcase?" I smiled. He froze, then left, quickly. On the ground, he dropped a business card, Bradley Thompson, legal consultant. Available weekends. No phone number. I stood there stunned, but also oddly entertained. Victoria wasn't just escalating. She was getting sloppy. And the more she reached, the more obvious it became. She didn't want justice. She wanted control. And control makes people desperate. It happened on a Saturday morning. I heard the clink, then the snap. By the time I reached the front door, the gate lock had been cut. Clean. Victoria Harlow stood inside my rose garden clipboard in one hand, bolt cutters in the other, flanked by 2 nervous neighbors pretending to be inspectors. She marched over flower beds, crushing stems like she was storming a battlefield. "This is HOA-sanctioned property evaluation," she yelled, as if volume equaled legality. Behind her, Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit eyes wide. A tiny wooden sign, hand-painted by my late grandmother, lay broken in the dirt. My breath caught. This wasn't a violation anymore. It was a violation of memory, of family. I didn't scream. I opened my phone, hit record, and said clearly, "You are trespassing. I suggest you leave before this gets criminal. I'm calling the police." Victoria shrieked, fumbling for her phone like it was a badge. "Perfect," I replied calmly. "So am I." The 2 inspectors exchanged looks. One quietly stepped backward, crushing another rose underfoot. Within 10 minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up. Victoria rushed toward them, voice shrill and righteous. "She's obstructing community oversight. She's a danger to HOA. Order." The older officer turned to me. "Ma'am, here's my property deed. Acquired in 2008. HOA declination filed and notarized in 2016. And this," I said, holding up my phone, "is video evidence of trespassing, destruction of private property, and illegal entry." He raised an eyebrow. "So, your property isn't under HOA jurisdiction at all." "Exactly." Victoria's face went from fire truck red to copy paper white, and for the first time, she didn't say a word. 2 days after the police visit, a letter appeared in my mailbox. Thick paper, gold-embossed header. Williams Legal Associates. Sounded official. Impressive, even. Until I Googled the address, it was a rented P.O. box in a strip mall next to a donut shop. The letter full of typos gave me 48 hours to dismantle the fence or face full legal consequences. Signed at the bottom, John Harlow, attorney at law. Victoria's husband, who according to public records had no bar license. Anywhere. I called the number listed. Disconnected. The letter felt like something out of a soap opera, a desperate final swing before the collapse. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed copies. 3 of them. One for my records, one for the authorities, and one for the next HOA meeting. Because if Victoria wanted a courtroom, I'd bring her a whole damn jury. I stopped reacting. No more arguments, no more explanations. Just quiet steps one by one into legal war. I pulled city permits, land records, HOA bylaws, every dusty paper I'd once filed and nearly forgotten. My dining table became a war room, maps, documents, sticky notes, like battle plans. Then I dug into Victoria herself. I found the HOA's original charter, dated witness limited in scope. Then the 2020 version signed only by Victoria, expanding her powers to absurd lengths. No vote, no approval, no legality. She'd declared herself queen and no one noticed. Until now. Next, I traced HOA fines from the past year, 43,000 collected. Only 20,000 showed in bank statements, the rest gone. I printed every page, tabbed every line, and called Michelle Torres, my closest friend from law school. Her reply, "Emma, this isn't just HOA drama. This is criminal. Let's take her down." I started with Mrs. Davis. She was fined $200 for planting yellow mums instead of white. She cried when I told her Victoria had no authority to issue those fines. Then came Dave the electrician, $300 for parking his truck outside his own house. "She took pictures of me at 5:30 a.m., he said, like she was waiting in the dark. I kept listening. One by one, they came forward stories of intimidation, fake violations, threats whispered between mailboxes. They'd been silent for years, not because they were weak, but because they thought they were alone. I showed them the documents, the altered bylaws, the missing funds, the fake lawyer. "Can she really go to jail for this?" one neighbor asked. Michelle nodded. "If there's justice in the system, absolutely." That night we started a group chat. 42 members joined within 2 days. And we all had one thing in common. We were done being afraid. Our dining room looked like a law firm, and a newsroom had collided. Charts, evidence folders, highlighters, 2 laptops constantly pinging. Michelle sat across from me scrolling through PDFs like a machine. We need timelines, clean visuals. Every signature she forged, every dollar unaccounted for, she said. I built slides. Slide 1, my deed. Slide 2, my HOA declination form. Slide 3, her altered bylaws with red marks screaming, "Illegal." We printed flyers, we prepared Q&A handouts. Michelle rehearsed opening remarks like she was heading to the Supreme Court. Outside, Victoria pruned her hedge, unaware she was 72 hours away from collapse. I could feel it building, this tension beneath my skin like static before a lightning strike. But I wasn't nervous. I was ready, because this time we weren't showing up as victims. We were walking into that meeting as witnesses, and prosecutors, and neighbors finally done with silence. The night before the hearing, I sat under the moonlight fixing a splintered stake from my rosebush hand-carved by my grandmother when I was 8. Emma tiptoed out in her pajamas. "Mom, is the angry lady going to hurt our garden again?" I pulled her close. "Not if I can help it." We sat beneath the fence. The same fence I built nail by nail, not to keep people out, but to keep a world safe for her, for us. This fight was never about paint colors or gate heights. It was about dignity. And tonight, as I looked at the soil torn but not defeated, I knew I wasn't just defending property lines. I was defending every quiet person Victoria had ever silenced. Tomorrow, their voices would rise through mine. Maplewood Heights had never seen this many people. Plastic chairs groaned, air thick with tension. Victoria sat center stage, blazer crisp lips pursed her hand, poised over the mic like a judge awaiting applause. "Let's begin," she said, clicking her laptop. Slide 1. My fence. Slide 2. My trash bins. Seriously. She launched into a speech about declining standards and dangerous precedents. Every word sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced it into the mirror with hairspray and hypocrisy. People shifted. A few yawned. One woman whispered, "This is what we came for." But as Victoria grinned smugly, she didn't notice the door open behind her, or Michelle Torres walking in briefcase in hand. Order was coming. I stood slowly. Gasps. Whispers. Victoria tightened her jaw. "Comments are at the end," she snapped, trying to maintain control. Before I spoke, Michelle rose. "Michelle Torres, licensed attorney representing Rachel Thompson." Victoria faltered, visibly thrown. "We request to respond now before misinformation poisons the room." The board nodded. "You have 5 minutes." Michelle smiled. "We'll need 3. I held up my documents. "This house is not under HOA jurisdiction. Every violation, every threat, legally baseless." Victoria blinked. Murmurs rippled, but then she smirked. "Those papers are outdated. The board amended the bylaws last year." Michelle stepped forward. "That's exactly the problem. You amended them alone." And just like that, her smirk vanished. I placed 2 documents side by side on the projector. On the left, the original HOA charter dated 2016, board approved. On the right, Victoria's updated version from 2020, unsigned, unvoted, unauthorized. Michelle's voice cut through the room like a scalpel. These amendments gave her unchecked authority conducting inspections without notice, issuing unlimited fines, bypassing votes. People leaned forward. She gave herself the power to act as judge, jury, and executioner, Michelle added. Gasps. Shifts in seats. A man near the back stood. "Wait, those changes were never discussed in any meeting." Michelle nodded. "Because they were never legal." Victoria stood, her voice brittle. "Those updates were necessary emergency revisions." "Without community consent," I said, flipping to the signature page. Empty. More murmurs. Mrs. Davis whispered, "We've been living under fake rules." I looked at Victoria and said, "You rewrote the law to crown yourself queen, but tonight your reign ends." I held up a simple spreadsheet. 3 columns. Dates, amounts, account entries. Michelle stepped beside me, her tone now ice. In the past 12 months, the HOA collected $43,000 in fines. She pointed to the community bank statement. Only $20,000 reached the account. Gasps spread like wildfire. "Where's the rest?" someone asked aloud. Michelle advanced the slide highlighting transfers to a private account under Victoria L. Harlow. We didn't need to say the word. Everyone thought it embezzlement. Dave, the electrician, stood up. "That's my $300 right there." Mrs. Davis covered her mouth. "She made me pay cash," Victoria stammered. "That was for landscaping reserves." Michelle shook her head. "Then why did it end up in your personal checking account?" Dead silence. I looked at the room, then back at Victoria. This isn't just unethical, it's criminal, and she knew it. The silence cracked slowly, then all at once. A low murmur rose from the back. Disbelief, then outrage, then clarity. "She made me pay twice for the same violation," someone shouted. "I parked my car for 10 minutes and got fined $100," a man growled. "I thought it was just me," whispered an older woman, her eyes glassy. 40 pairs of eyes turned toward Victoria, not with respect, but with something far sharper, betrayal. She stood frozen, clutching her clipboard like it could shield her. I only did what was necessary to maintain standards," she said, voice shaking. "No." Michelle replied coldly, "You exploited your neighbors, rewrote the rules, and lined your pockets." Victoria opened her mouth again, but no sound came. Because this time no one was listening. The crowd had turned. And, for the first time, the room belonged to the people, not the clipboard in the black blazer. While Victoria stood trembling at the podium, mascara smudging, hands shaking, a quiet shift occurred at the back of the room. John Harlow, her husband, slipped out of his chair. No dramatic goodbye, no defense, not even a glance in her direction. He walked past the snack table, past the community bulletin board, right out the exit. Gone. Someone near the door said, "Wasn't he the one pretending to be her lawyer?" Another replied. Guess he finally realized he might need a real one. Victoria didn't notice. She was too busy flipping through papers searching for any line, any clause that might save her. But there were no words left to twist, no pages left to hide behind. The woman who had controlled an entire neighborhood couldn't even control her own story anymore. And now, not even her husband wanted to be part of it. The silence he left behind was louder than any gavel. Dave stood up slowly, his face red with years of quiet humiliation. "I move for an emergency vote," he said, voice firm. "Effective immediately remove Victoria Harlow from all HOA leadership." The room fell still, then erupted into a wave of murmurs. "I second," came Mrs. Davis, standing taller than I'd ever seen her. "All in favor," I asked, stepping forward to count. Hands rose. 1, 2, 10, 20, 46 arms lifted high, some trembling, some defiant, but all certain. "Opposed?" I asked. Silence. Not a single hand. Even those once loyal sat still, eyes lowered. I took a breath, my voice clear. The motion passes. Victoria Harlow is hereby removed from all HOA positions effective now. Victoria didn't move. She didn't argue. She simply stared as if the room had vanished around her, leaving only truth behind. Her clipboard dangled at her side like a weapon no longer needed. Because the war was over. Victoria didn't pack that night. She vanished 2 weeks later, quiet as dust before dawn. No farewell, no apology, no attempt at redemption. The house sold at 15% below market value to a young couple with twin daughters and a bright turquoise mailbox. Neighbors watched through windows as a moving truck pulled away. Her clipboard was never seen again. But her legacy lingered in broken trust, bruised dignity, and $23,000 worth of damage. Thankfully, that money was recovered through court action. Every cent returned to the HOA fund with interest. With it, we rebuilt new flower beds, a community swing set, security lights, and something else we hadn't had in years: laughter. One neighbor painted a tiny sign by the entrance, "Welcome to Maplewood Heights." HOA governed by humans, not tyrants. No one dared take it down, and no one knocked on my door again unless they brought kindness or cookies. At the next HOA election, no one campaigned with promises of power. There were no clipboards, no speeches about order, just people tired, cautious, but ready to rebuild. Mrs. Davis was elected president unanimously. She'd once been fined for planting yellow mums. Now she planted seeds of transparency. Dave, the electrician, became vice president. He used the recovered funds to fix the park lights, repaint benches, and install a new playground. At night, laughter echoed from the swing set. The same street that once tiptoed in fear now danced in light. We rewrote the bylaws together. No more unchecked authority, no more shadow rules. Votes, discussions, term limits, real democracy. Trust didn't return overnight, but it came in pieces: a neighbor's wave, a shared joke, an apology whispered at the mailbox. And, for the first time in years, Maplewood Heights began to feel like something it hadn't in a long time home. I never planned to return to law, but after Victoria, I couldn't stay silent. Neighbors from other communities began reaching out. Their own Victorias had different names, but the same tactics control masked as order. So I reopened my practice. Not for courtrooms, not for billable hours, but for people. I specialized in HOA abuse cases, unlawful fines, harassment, embezzlement, things most people thought they had to tolerate. They don't. Michelle and I built a website, knowyourhoa.org, free guides, legal templates, a hotline. It spread faster than we imagined. We didn't just help homeowners, we helped them feel human again. Sometimes the law isn't about punishment. It's about protection. And justice. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't wear a badge or scream through a megaphone. Sometimes justice is quiet, like a fence that finally stands unchallenged. Or a garden no one dares to step into without being invited. The fence still stands tall, quiet, and unapologetic. Its cedar planks have weathered storms and conflict, but not defeat. Each board holds memory the afternoon I painted them, the day Lily took her first steps beside them, the moment Victoria tried to rip them down. I used to see the fence as a defense against intrusion, judgment noise. Now I see it as a declaration. This space is mine. This peace is mine. This life, however imperfect, is mine. Sometimes I run my fingers along the grain, feeling the texture of autonomy. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it creaks softly in the wind and blooms at its base. Neighbors pass by and smile now. No more whispers, no more clipped nods. Some even ask what stain I used if they can build something similar, and I always answer yes, because boundaries when built with care don't push people away. They teach them where respect begins. One quiet morning, as sunlight filtered through the rose bushes, there was a knock at my door. Mrs. Davis stood there holding a bouquet of yellow mums, bright, unapologetic, defiant in their color, the same kind I got fined for. She smiled, placing them gently in my hands. "I thought you should have them." I invited her in. We sat on the porch, two women from different generations who had lived under the same shadow, now finally free of it. "I wish I had spoken up sooner," she said, eyes glistening. "You did," I replied. "You just didn't know it yet." She nodded, then looked out over the garden. "You didn't just save your home, Emma. You gave us back ours." It wasn't a grand speech. It didn't need to be. Sometimes gratitude sounds like silence shared between two people who both know exactly what it took to get here. Lily has started her own patch in the garden, a small corner near the fence where she plants marigolds, sunflowers, and whatever seeds she finds interesting. She waters them with a pink plastic can and narrates their growth like bedtime stories. "This one's the brave one," she says, pointing to a crooked stem, "and this one's shy. But they're all friends." Sometimes I kneel beside her, hands in the soil, feeling something deeper than dirt pass between us. Resilience, maybe, or peace rediscovered. She doesn't remember Victoria. She remembers Bunny's chalk drawings on the pavement and the day the big yellow slide got installed at the park. That's how it should be. The legacy she'll inherit isn't one of fear but of quiet defiance, truth told firmly, and boundaries drawn in blooming color. And in this patch of earth surrounded by laughter and sunlight, she grows something no HOA can ever regulate: freedom. Sometimes, while sipping my morning coffee, I glance across the street to the house that once belonged to Victoria Harlow. It's different now. Painted a cheerful turquoise by the Rodriguez family, with wind chimes dancing in the breeze and sunflowers spilling over the porch. Twin girls giggle as they race toy scooters down the driveway, their father waving as he waters the lawn. No clipboards, no rules barked like orders. Just life, messy, beautiful, unafraid. It's strange how a place so heavy with memory can feel so light. The house hasn't forgotten, but it has forgiven, and maybe that's the greatest victory of all, because it wasn't just about stopping Victoria, it was about reclaiming our homes, our dignity, and our right to live without fear. I look back, not with bitterness, but with quiet pride. Not every war leaves scars. Some leave gardens, and laughter, and peace. In the end, this story wasn't just about fences, fines, or bylaws. It was about something far deeper: the right to live peacefully in a place you call home, without fear of control, invasion, or silence forced upon you. If you've ever felt powerless in your own story, let this be your reminder: you are never truly alone. You deserve boundaries. You deserve peace. And no one, no matter how loud or entitled, has the right to take that from you. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of someone you care about, feel free to share it. Tag a friend who may need to hear it. Because sometimes the first step to reclaiming your power is realizing someone else once did it too. And if you found something valuable here, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and stay with us for more real stories that remind us what justice really looks like. See you in the next one. Thank you for watching.